There's a reason that people underestimate the Gen Xers. We are quieter than the boomers, less attention seeking than the millennials, and less online than the Gen Z. But that silence, that independence, that emotional distance that people joke about, that didn't just come from nowhere. We learned how to survive without any help from anyone. And once you understand how we grew up and how we were raised, it makes sense why we move through life a lot differently. In this video today, I'm going to talk about the 4 biggest reasons why Gen X is the most terrifying generation. And I'm also going to talk about the biggest downside of the Gen X strength. So I hope that you will watch until the very end. Let me know you're here in the comments and join the conversation. The first point is that Gen Xers are very adaptable. We are resourceful, we are resilient, and we are extremely hard to intimidate. Most of us were latchkey kids. We were out all night until dark. We were coming home to empty houses, taking care of ourselves. We were preparing our own food. How many of you were babysitting someone else's kid when you were 13 years old? I mean, this builds strength, this builds resilience, this builds toughness. No one was tracking our location. No one cared about our feelings. We didn't talk to our parents about how we were feeling. And no one was checking in to see if we were okay. And that is what built such resilience that we are unstoppable. And Gen Xers learned really early on that if there was a problem, we had to figure it out ourselves. There was no one there to help. And if we went to our parents, they would have just told us to go figure it out on our own. Our second superpower is that we learned really early on what emotional control and emotional regulation was. Hi friends, my name's Lori. Welcome to my channel Ever After 50. Thank you so much for being here. I am a full-time married working mom. I have 2 young adults still living in the home. I am midlife. I'm on the cusp of retirement. I'm here to share all of the midlife struggles from, almost empty nesting to almost retirement and everything in between. And I hope if anything resonates that you will join the conversation in the comments, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. So let's get to this video. Gen Xers grew up in a time when emotions were not openly discussed. You didn't go to your parents letting them know that you were feeling sad or you were struggling. You just did not discuss your emotions. And most of us learned to keep going, keep trudging along, no matter what was happening internally. Now, that does come with consequences because a lot of Gen Xers struggling with vulnerability, burnout, emotional suppression, and not feeling comfortable opening up and sharing what your struggles are. But it also created a generation that can function under pressure of any kind. And, we have learned to compartmentalize. We can survive chaos. We work under pressure. We can handle disappointment without falling apart publicly. And that emotional toughness can seem terrifying to people that grew up in a more emotionally open world. Our third superpower is that we trust ourselves more than we trust systems. One of the biggest differences with Gen X is that we do not automatically trust institutions. We have watched layoffs happen after loyalty, pensions disappear, divorce rates rise, people being laid off left, right, and center. And we've learned to be skeptical. We've learned to ask questions. We've learned not to trust institutions. We have learned to trust ourselves over systems. And that is what makes the Gen X mindset hard to manipulate. We question things. We don't go blindly into following trends. And we are more than happy and more than comfortable sitting alone if we believe that something is true. The fourth superpower of the Gen Xers is that we are quiet, but we are resilient. The thing about Gen X is that we do not announce our struggles. We continue on quietly, and we have survived so many things. We have survived the economy, aging parents, kids growing up and leaving, pensions disappearing. We have survived economic crashes, caring for aging parents, career instability, parenting shifts, menopause, and identity reinvention all at once. There is a downside to this Gen X strength, though. We often struggle to ask for help. We normalize stress. We overfunction. We are sometimes isolating, and we tell ourselves that we're fine even though we're not. So while independence has made us feel resilient, it's also made us feel sometimes emotionally alone. And I think that's important to acknowledge, because a bigger strength comes from acknowledging that you need help, acknowledging that you need people, and that you need support. Gen X became terrifying because we were shaped by unpredictability. We learned resilience before self-care. We learned independence before emotional support, and we adapted before we were comfortable. And I think every generation has its strengths, but I think Gen X is one of the toughest generations, and we're quiet about our successes, about our struggles, and we are sometimes misunderstood. We're not the loudest generation, but we're the generation that figured things out. We are the generation that had to grow up fast. We're the ones that survived pretty much anything. And maybe that's exactly why people underestimate us. If you made it to the very end, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you're a midlifer, a Gen Xer, let me know that you're here in the comments. I'm curious to see where you're from and what you think our biggest strengths are. I mean, I basically raised myself, which I think is the case for many Gen Xers. I would consider myself to be tough as nails on the outside, on the inside, and maybe a little bit tough as well as a parent.
My kids would say that I've parented them both differently. I tend to disagree. I feel like I have been equally strict with both of them, but maybe a little bit lenient in some cases. So many of us Gen X parents want to break the cycle. We want to parent our kids differently, but we also do still want to instill those values, the work ethic, the resilience, the adaptability, all those traits that have made us so tough and so strong. But having said that, we make a point of doing so much more for our kids than what our parents did.
But let me know you're here. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll subscribe. Until next time, bye for now.